Hey there, this is a review for Cast Crusades session 55 of our campaign. I had 6 players for the session. We had Sprawl, Cosmo, Lork, Barry, Ronan, and a new character which comes in later in the session, played by my friend Jeremy. His name is Tully, but we'll get into him in a little bit. Excuse me. Picked up where we left off from the last session. They were at this tunnel passage here in the Sanctum of the wizard Evan Noss. So they're kind of crowded in that narrow hallway. There's a door at the end, and Cosmo goes up, does his thing as the rogue, checks it for traps, unlocks it. I think he unlocked it. There was a couple locked doors that he had to deal with throughout this. I don't know if that was one. I don't remember if that was one of them or not. But anyway, they open this up, and at the end of this hall right here, they see a stone statue standing there. And when Lork and Cosmo move ahead into this area, the statue animates. It has 4 arms. Each arm has a sword in it. And they quickly realize that this is not good. So, and then its eyes light up red, and it approaches them, and battle ensues. They found out pretty quick that this was a tough, basically a stone golem. I modified him slightly due to the miniature. The miniature has 4 arms, so it has 4 weapons, and so they start fighting it. It does a lot of damage right off the bat. One of the reasons is just in its nature, using the stats from the Castle of Crusades Monsters and Treasures book. Stone golems do a fair amount of damage, and I was using an optional rule from a book that I just got, which I may do a video on, where larger creatures get their hit die, which this thing was significant, as bonus damage. So I played around with that rule, and fairly devastating. I might not have really needed it for this monster because it did get 4 attacks, so it may have been a little bit overkill, but it quickly made the battle very tense. They actually fight for a little bit, and they realize this thing is really hard to hit, and it has a crazy AC out of the Monsters and Treasures book. I think it was like AC 26, which is super high. It's funny that it's interesting that it's that high, because I looked at other sources outside of OSR style games, and the Stone Golem does not have nearly that high of an AC. So this thing is pretty tough. I kind of like that, though. The other thing that they're quickly realizing is Barry in the back is hitting it with spells, and none of them are having an effect. It's basically immune to magic as written. There's a couple things that will affect it, but they didn't cast those spells. Ronan is launching arrows left and right. Can't hit it. If he is hitting it, it's just deflecting off. Tough fight. I think Cosmo was down to like 5 hit points because they got into melee with it. They realized this is bad because it split its attacks between Lork and Cosmo, and I think it got 2 successful hits, maybe on both of them. I know it got it on Cosmo, and they decided to retreat. I think maybe it was 1 on Cosmo at that point, and they decided to retreat back up into the hallway, which was smart. But they'd already engaged in melee, so they kind of like they left melee, which gave that creature, that golem, a chance to attack them again, and it did. And I think Chris said Cosmo was down to like 5 hit points after that, so he went to the back and stayed there, or into the middle of the hallway. But when they got up in the hallway, their creature, the golem, stopped pursuing them and then went back down. So they were like, oh, okay, maybe it's just guarding this area. So what they did was they were smart. They healed up Lork, who was their frontline fighter, and then Sprawl actually cast a spell on him that boosted his armor class. I don't know what the spell was. I think it was actually the first time he ever used it, but it gave him like a +6 to his armor class, and Lork already has a really good armor class, so it made him much harder to hit. And my son, Bryson, who plays Lork, he was smart too, because he dual wields weapons, and he chose to forego a second attack, and he used his offhand weapon as a defensive bonus, which is a thing you can do in Castles of Crusades. So that gave him an additional +1 to his AC. So he's really trying to armor up and then just hammer it with his sword, which wasn't it did damage against it, but he's not getting the giant bane effect out of it. But it was the best weapon he had that he could use. So they come back down. Lort charges back in. Everybody's trying to support him as best they can. And it was a pretty tough fight. He got hit a few more times, I think, and was down some more HP. But ultimately, for the final killing blow, Ronan actually finally got 2 hits with his bow, with his oath bow. And he couldn't use the oath and the oath bow because he'd used it against a Hydra, and it has a recharge rate. I think it's a day. We looked it up at the time. I think Steve said it was a day. But he couldn't use it. So if he could have used it, he would have hit more often. But his last 2 hits were enough to finish off the this stone golem, which they were very happy about. Barry's very interested in golems. In the he has his Iron Cobra, which he uses basically so far as like a defensive mechanism. He keeps it with him and it guards him. So Barry's inspecting that, but then they end up, they end up want to check out the surroundings. So one of the rooms that they find, that they get into, is this room here, which is basically Evan Noss's study. And this very much excites Barry. And Barry starts looking through books, and he finds books on artifacts, and not like manuals of golems. If you're familiar with old versions of the AD&D and stuff, there was manual of golems as a magic item. They're an item that's specific to the type of golem you want to create, and you need one to create a golem. But there's a lot of notes, journal entries, and stuff like that. One of the things he finds when he's looking through the Evan Noss's notes is there's references to the architect, which is somebody that Alistair Ningle, the gnome, that Barry and Lork encountered up in Balfour Doom, the Dwarven Stronghold, had made reference to in his notes too, as well. So while Barry's sitting there, he's sitting in this big comfy chair, looking through all this stuff, quite happy. The bookshelf next to him moves a little bit, and Barry, not being the most courageous of characters, cries for help. Lort comes in and pulls the bookcase aside, and they find this hollowed out area behind the bookcase. And in it is this metallic monkey, and it turns to them, and its eyes light up with this very pale green color, and it speaks to them, and it tells them that his name is Milo. He was created by Evan Noss, and he's afraid. He's afraid that these machines are coming to get him. They don't really know what that is, but they coax him out of his hidey hole, and he actually has these wings that flutter out, and he can fly. And it was very reminiscent of if you watch the original Clash of the Titans, the owl that was in it, which I didn't like as a kid, and I didn't make that connection. Matt, who plays Sprawl, made that connection, but he wasn't wrong. So yeah, this Milo, his name is, says that basically that Evan Noss created him, and that he used to, he was basically Evan Noss's little assistant. They search around some more. Barry collects all the books he can find in this room. They check this room here. This is basically just storage. They end up coming down into here. And this is a cavern. And it looked like this was Evan Noss's, where he did his actual physical work. There's tables and racks and systems and for pulleys and stuff like that. There's a big forge in the middle. And towards the far end, where you see the miniature back there, there's just this pile of scrap. And all the tables and stuff are flipped over, and there's pieces of other metal here that doesn't quite match up with any of the equipment. And when they go down and explore the pile of scrap, they realize that it's the remains of a mechanical dragon. And Milo tells them that this was something Evan Noss was creating, and it was like him. It was going to be like him, sentient, and they are somewhat sentient. He didn't use the word sentient, but they realized early on, talking to Milo, that it's not normal for him to be able to talk. And So they start questioning him about that. And they noticed in the clock, in this, we call it a clockwork dragon. That's what the miniature is. There's a hole in his chest about maybe the size of a fist, and it's empty. And they immediately get the impression, the characters do, that something was in there. And they talk to Milo about it, and Milo opens up his chest, and he has something similar. It's this green, his is small, it's like maybe the size of your thumb. But he has this green glowing gem in his chest, which Sprawl doesn't recognize as any sort of stone that he's familiar with. But that basically is Milo's power core, and this thing had it. Lork actually collected some of these other scrap pieces that didn't fit anything. I don't know what his plan was. We didn't ever elaborate on that, but he did collect some of them. And there was some sort of fight here, and Milo basically tells him that he hid because Evan Noss told him to, and he hid in the study in the little secret alcove behind the bookshelf. It was interesting that he didn't know, like Milo wasn't sure what he was going to do next, and the party, it was Lork actually that offered, you can come with us, and Barry was like, yeah, you should come with us. So after thoroughly exploring this area, not really finding anything else, they used the ring that was given to Barry by his mentor, Cyan, and they returned to Arden. There, the party gets about a week of downtime to try to plan, because now their next plan is to go to the Underdark to find the second piece of the Rod of Seven Parts. They meet up with Oslin Stonemelder, the deep gnome that they rescued way back when from the Dark Dwarves down there. He's been working in the mining town, helping the dwarves, and he's a tremendous help there. As a scout, he's found new veins of silver ore, and he's very helpful there. He briefs the party, excuse me, on what they're going to need in the Underdark, some of the dangers they're going to face. And this kind of got jumbled around on how we played it out, because there was another whole scene that happened before that where when they get back, that Lork and Sprawl go to grandmother Dordana Earthshade's home, where Sprawl breaks the news about the death of her grandson Agrax. And that was a really good scene that we got to play out where that happens. And there was no physical remains of Agrax found, but they were able to bring back his axe and his breastplate and his runestone. So initially, she's very, upset, but she's a stoic, wise dwarf and woman, and she she does show emotion, and Sprawl is very upset, I would say. Upset, obviously, disappointed, because his whole reasoning, because he's older than like his two brothers were, and his whole reason for adventuring with them was to like protect them, because he was the older brother, and now they're both dead. So he feels like he's kind of failed them, and she kind of reassures him that she didn't, that he had not, and that he should basically, enjoy the memories that he had traveling with them and adventuring with them. So he agrees to do that. Initially, she puts his axe in the shrine she has in her garden to Riska. And eventually, I think Sprawl wants to put that in, like, above the bar in Scranton Hall, where they spend a fair amount of time. And it's replaced by the breastplate armor that Agrax wore. So they do that. Lork's there for all of that. She, despite her loss and sadness, she's a gracious host, and they spend some time with grandmother and before they head back. So they do some planning. They get that taken care of. Barry's busy studying everything he can about the books and stuff that he gathered. Lork actually brings Milo to into the Homewood Forest, where his home is being built by a team of gnomes that he's hired, and he leaves Milo with them to help, because he shows that he can fly up and to the top of this thing. His home is being built in these giant trees, and he brings that up, like some stuff up there to one of the workers, and then excuse me, they end up dumping off, like Lorik leaves Fenris with Seamus, and Sprawl leaves, I can't remember, he's got that war goat mount. He leaves that behind as well, because they know they won't be able to take him into the Underdark easily. So they leave that behind. They load up the Fireball freight, Barry's wagon / business, and they head to the mining town. Travel to the mining town is pretty easy. That's a well-established route. So they make it to the mining town, where they spend the night at Wiggins' ale tent, which is now no longer a tent. It's actually a structure, fully completed structure. The last time they were there, it was like half tent, half structure under construction. So it's completed now, but they still call it Wiggins' ale tent. And they meet with Durgan Ironhelm, who's always happy to see them. And he presents Oslin with a dwarven-made breastplate armor, which I should back up a little bit. While they were still in Arden, Jeremy's new character replacing Agrax comes in, and his name is Tully Tapper, and he's a dwarven paladin of Throster and an old friend of Sprawl's. So there was they were reunited in Arden, and Sprawl convinces him, without much convincing, to join them. So that happened. And so now they're all in the mining town. They're having a night of celebration. Ronan and Lorik use the bathhouse to, get one last wash in before, because they know this journey is going to take some time. Oslin's told them it's going to take some time to get to the Sunless Sea, and they're looking at maybe, a month or more of journeying in the Underdark. So one last, hoorah before they go. So next morning they head out. Like I said, Oslin is given some dwarven breastplate armor, which is some alternate armor that's in the Castle Keeper's Guide. It's a little bit more protective than regular breastplate, so he gives him a thing of that, and a military war pick, which is actually, I took that from the Hyperborea RPG. It's just a pick that does a little bit more damage. So, so they head into the Underdark the next day. The first part was pretty easy. I kind of above board ran into issues, like they traveled the same ground, and the guys, because there were some characters that had been here before and others that hadn't, and the guys played it great. They were nervous about, like, when they finally got into the Underdark, and if you didn't watch or haven't listened to that episode, it's a long time ago, like a year, I think, or more, real time. It's obviously the Underdark's deep beneath the earth. They follow these deep tunnels that even the dwarves don't really use. And then they eventually lead to this huge cavern with this narrow bridge that's about the width of this actual table that we game on, in this chasm. And the first time they were there, they got attacked by dark mantles, and it was a way more stressful and challenging encounter than I had planned at the time. It was great. But I didn't want to do those same encounters again. But the guys played it great. Like, they played it like, this is no joke. We can't, their characters are like, we can't fool around. We need to rope each other together. We need to do all these things. So they did a really good job. I just didn't want to rehash the same encounters. So they were able to make it through this area encounter-free. Same thing, they go to the fungal grove that they went to before, where they met Unglock the Stone Giant. And they seek him out, and they find him in his lair. He actually comes out and kind of challenges them. They realize he recognizes some of them, so he doesn't smash them, which they were grateful for. And he's very stoic. He's a stone giant. He lives alone. But he does welcome them back to his lair, where they take rest for the night. On their way back, he has like a Roth herd, which is like basically an Underdark cow. And he clubs one of them and throws it over his shoulder, which they're like, holy crap. It kind of surprised everybody when he did it. But then I explained to him as well, like, he's about 16 feet tall. One of those cows probably weighs easily 1,000+ pounds, and he throws it over his shoulder like it's nothing. So they're like, okay, yeah, I think it helped impart like how dangerous he could be. And he brings them back, and they make camp in his lair, and he feeds them. And Barry's able to make some of Unglock's brew, they call it. It's a healing potion that he makes that does like really good healing, but you can only find the ingredients here, and it's basically impossible to transplant them somewhere else without them dying. So it keeps them from like monopolizing that above board. One of the things he does tell them that is, they ask him about like the Sunless Sea, because in his lair he's got like this basically cave paintings, and part of it is a map of the Underdark, because he's been here for a very long time. He's very old. He says he's been to the Sunless Sea, but it was centuries and centuries ago, before the dwarves came. And now that the dwarves come, he doesn't go that way because he just doesn't want to deal with them. He does tell them that since their escapades in the Underdark, their previous escapades, that initially the dwarves, those dark dwarves, did come into the fungal grove, but he took care of that. And they don't really bother him anymore, but he doesn't want to wade into them. He knows even as powerful he is, that probably wouldn't go well if he waded into them. So they get to spend a restful night in Unglock's lair. One of the things Oslin tells them that is the gate where they found him, there's this shaft, which the characters that had been here before remembered, and that he had been down that, but not all the way, but he thinks that they should take that route, and he might be able to lead them around, because the goal is to get to his people. And what they don't want to do is, he's like, if we go through the gate, that's like basically a highway for the Dark Dwarves. Like, we will definitely run into a lot of patrols, and it'll be almost impossible to sneak through there. We might be able to sneak around this way, though. So they agree that's the best plan. They leave and travel these tunnels through the fungal. They go through the fungal grove and then into the tunnels that lead to where the gate is. We ended the session there. Ended a little bit early because they started to plan what they were going to do to get around the gate, or get by the dwarves that they suspect will be at the gate. So initially I didn't have like anything not planned, but like when the plan became a little more involved, I was like, oh, we should probably have something set up for them so we can play this out. Because if they sneak by, great, I'm all for it. This actually was a topic that came up. And if they don't, we'll be ready for a battle or whatever. And it was funny, my buddy Dave made the comment that, well, if he sets up all that stuff, there's definitely going to be a battle. And that's not true. Like, I could set up this whole table. This table's 13 feet long. I could fill this thing with terrain. If they found a way to get around the fight or circumvent it, I don't really care if they do that. That's fine. I don't want to railroad them into a fight, but I want to have it laid out in case it goes sideways so we can play it out better. We like to use the terrain and miniatures. So yeah, that was the session. Like I said, we ended a little bit early, like about a half hour early. So we're going to play again in March. We got 2 sessions in January, which was good. Then we already played this month, February, so we'll play again towards the beginning of March. So, yeah, real good session. It was great. We had 6 guys. We're really starting to get I want to say like core group, I guess is a way to describe it. When I ran these before this campaign started, it was a straight up West marches. So every session ended with them in a safe space. And I told them from the beginning, we actually had this discussion because we did have one player that couldn't make it. What are we doing with his character? Because you guys are going to be gone for months. This is not going to be one session. So they are kind of willing to drag him along and maybe use him as an NPC. We didn't get into any combat after in the Underdark yet, so it's okay, I guess. We didn't have to juggle his character at all. So hopefully he can make the next session, but we'll see. I won't run character when they're gone. The party can if the player is up for it. They don't get any XP while their player isn't here. That's just the way I run it. I don't do milestone leveling, and you have to be here to get XP. So that's how it works. So that'll come up. So the game's changing a little bit. Part of that is being able to do these longer session arcs where we're going to do multiple sessions in the Underdark. It's such a cool area that I didn't want to be at like one and done. Like I wouldn't do it justice. in the amount of time we have. And we switch times when we play. We used to play in the mornings on the weekend, and we switched to evenings, and that seems to work better. We're getting much more consistent numbers of players. Like 6 is about the average we've been having lately, so which is really good. But that's just a little me trying to explain how our game works and how I guess it's evolved a little bit. But yeah, so that was a session. Looking forward to the next one, and thanks for watching.